Crime Stands Still. One season, one story by Kerrie Droban. The podcast that delves deeply into true crime stories post-conviction, resolving cases, bringing you new evidence, fresh perspective, and revisionist theories, the whole truth, and not just what the jury heard. Giving voice to the voiceless is my passion, and the inspiration behind this new Just Us project. I'm a criminal defense attorney, former prosecutor, and multi-published award-winning true crime author. I'm also a national speaker and expert in criminal pathology. Crime Stands Still retells what happened from why through reenactments, verbatim testimony, transcripts, audio recordings, and first-hand journal compositions, bringing you different voices and points of view, the suspects and others that you won't find on any other podcast. Subscribe, listen, and download for free from your preferred podcast app on Apple or Android devices. Original score, sound design, and mixing by composer and drummer Marjorie Droban. Season 1, Firefly. Episode 2, Sidebars. Marjorie's stint in jail for credit card fraud was brief, less than 24 hours. At first, Detective Butcher found it entirely reasonable that Jay might have been robbed or murdered. After all, his business attracted some shady characters. But when she drove to Jay's warehouse and found the inside gutted and the cargo van Marjorie had reported missing parked in the back lot, she grew suspicious. And with more questions than answers, she called Marjorie to follow up.
Hey Marjorie, it's Detective Butcher. It's about 10 to 6 Tuesday evening. I was just calling to see if maybe you were available. Need to speak with you regarding Jay and the disappearance.
Hello, this is Marjorie Orbin. I saw that you had just called.
Yeah, thanks for calling back, Marjorie.
Thanks.
Hey, I was wondering, do you have some time so we can sit down and talk about the investigation and where to go with it?
Sure, tomorrow.
You tell her to go yourself.
They watched as a large white male, Larry, emerged from the residence, looking up and down the street, as if paranoid, and upon spotting the detective's unmarked car, walked angrily towards him, breaking into a run, wagging his finger at him, yelling obscenities until the detective revved his engine and spun off. Well after nightfall, police returned with a SWAT team pounding on Marjorie's door.
They were dressed in battle gear, bulletproof vests, boots, whatever. My reaction was a reflex. Protective-wise, I put up my hands, in a fist kind of way. And the next thing I know, I was screaming and yelling and they tasered me. 300 volts and I dropped to the floor. My face hit full force into the ceramic tile. I was flipped over on my chest and handcuffed and stomped on. I was just over there doing nothing when it all went down.
Larry, with his smashed nose and bloody face, made sure the police knew he lived across the street from the Phoenix mayor. And if the SWAT team wanted to break down his door next, all he had to do was pull some strings. And as for Marjorie, he said they were barking up the wrong tree. And what they expected to find in her house was beyond his imagination. She doesn't know one thing, he said protectively of her. She was prone on the floor, screaming, "There's a child in the house, there's a child in the house."
I can understand where the detective was coming from. You know, am I going to knock off this guy? I don't even know what he looks like.
What about the gun? Did he ever take it out of his drawer before September 28th?
Absolutely not. I gave the gun to Brad. I just wasn't in the right frame of mind after that specific evening on the 28th. Everything was just so unreal. And having that gun around did not help my frame of mind. And also, my little grandchildren came over, and so did little Noah. And there wasn't any way that I needed any more complications than what I had. So I gave him the gun to hold on to. And he had a gun safe.
Close was Brad to your father?
They were very close.
Okay. Did they, go out drinking together, do anything like that, or?
I don't know. There were many times where Brad didn't come home till late in the evening. Didn't know where he was, didn't know what he did. Don't know.
That's why we're not married today.
Larry wasn't concerned about turning his gun over to police for ballistics testing because the bullet casing found in the tub matched a .38. Larry's gun was secure with Brad, a former Special Forces veteran and avid hunter, with an extensive collection of tools, including reciprocating saws. Larry had once elk hunted with him and had even helped him gut the kill. But it wasn't just Larry's odd behavior that had police concerned. In late October, 2 weeks after police found a torso in the desert, a citizen called Crime Stop. He reported Jay's missing green 1988 Ford Bronco had been abandoned in a residential neighborhood for 3 weeks, red-tagged for removal. But when police investigated, they found the Bronco in good condition, except for a crack in the windshield above the rearview mirror. Both the driver and passenger side windows were rolled up and the doors locked. A piece of paper, wedged under the driver's side windshield wiper, read, "If you would like to buy this truck, please call me." It was signed Ted. That wasn't the troubling detail. The neighbor reported seeing a blonde white female near the Bronco 3 weeks prior, removing the red tag sticker. Police impounded the Bronco in the basement of the homicide unit, and Detective Barnes, fresh from the victim's autopsy, had recovered a set of keys. What were the odds, he thought, that these keys fit the Bronco? What really alarmed police was the fact that Jay's cell phone had never been found. And yet records confirmed it had been used in Phoenix on September 8th, and on September 9th, his calls pinged off a tower a few blocks from his home. It called Marjorie's, and both phones pinged off the same tower. And over the next 3 weeks, whenever Jay's missing cell phone pinged off a tower, Marjorie's phone pinged off the same tower within minutes. How was this possible? Prosecutors had an idea, and on December 6, 2004, a grand jury indicted Marjorie on first-degree premeditated murder. 2 days later, police approached Larry. They still had questions. Would he agree to a free talk, they wondered. A recorded, videotaped interview that could not be used against him in any criminal proceedings, unless the information he provided was already known by police or discovered through other channels. Though Larry had been charged with 1 count of obstructing governmental operations, a Class 1 misdemeanor, the city's prosecutor's office dismissed the charge, concluding the police report did not contain sufficient facts to support a reasonable likelihood of conviction.
This is December 8th, 2004. We're at Phoenix Police Department to do a free talk. So, I'll just leave it with you and let you start.
I don't know anything about what happened to Jay Orbin. I've never even met Mr. Orbin. I've never spoken to him. I've never been around him or anything else. The only information I ever got about Jay Orbin was through Marjorie Orbin.
Okay. So what you're telling me is you had nothing to do with his disappearance or his murder.
Absolutely zero. Nothing. I never would have even thought about anything like this.
Did Marjorie ever tell you she was involved with his murder?
No.
There was a hair found on his remains.
Yes.
Preliminary results are the hair matches your hair.
Yes.
How would you explain that?
I have no idea. Now, it could have been from the individual who had done this activity. It could have been on their clothes. It could have been anywhere. I don't know.
But if that's your hair, did she ever mention that she wanted him dead or wanted to kill him?
Not to kill him, no. She's surprised that it didn't go off a cliff someplace. That's all.
Had she ever mentioned what she had to gain financially if he was dead?
No.
Okay. Have you ever asked her if she was involved in Jay's murder?
Yes, I did.
And how did she react?
We were sitting on my couch, and I asked her, do you know anything about Jay Orbin's disappearance or anything else? And she looked me square in the eye, and she says, I don't know anything. And I said, are you sure? And she said yes.
Did you believe her?
To a point, yes.
She never let on that she was involved at all?
No, sir, nothing. Nothing.
In your vehicle was a lot of plastic sheeting in the back seat. Your SUV vehicle that we seized with a search warrant.
Yes, there was. As I only had one piece of plastic back there, and it was rolled up, and it was in the corner.
It's consistent with the plastic we found Jay Orbin's remains wrapped in.
Can you explain consistent, please?
Well, it looks the same.
Okay.
Our lab...
That's fine. That piece of plastic was put in there approximately 2 months after from my garage. 2 months after I'd purchased that vehicle, which was in September of 2003. And yeah, 2003. And I've had that plastic in my garage because I used to use it. I did some renovation on my house, and I used to put it on the floor or whatever when I painted. So I took it, rolled it up, and threw it back there. Why I did that is because sometimes I'll get manure or something, cans, or I'll deliver something to a client, and I'll raise the back seats, put the plastic down, and throw the stuff on there. Okay, now, I don't know. I couldn't even answer you if your forensics departments do match that with that. I have no idea.
Okay, let me go back to the hair once more. Okay, would you have any explanations as to why your hair would be in on his remains?
Absolutely none. I can't imagine my hair being on his remains. Now, speculating? You're innocent until you're proven guilty in a court of law. If Marjorie Orbin had something to do with it, it could have been on her clothes or whatever. I have to say, other than that, I have no idea. Nada. Like I said, never met the man. Never spoke to the man. If I bump into him on the street, I wouldn't even know who he was.
Marjorie's house was littered with family photos of Jay, Noah, Marjorie, and Noah.
You're a truthful man?
To a point?
So that means sometimes you'll be truthful and other times you will not be truthful?
Yes.
Hey, Marjorie. How you doing today?
I'm still here. Still hopeful. Marking time. Trying to keep busy. Teaching the girls in here Step Up, a health and wellness program. Trying to teach them the importance of fitness, diet, self-esteem, inner strength. Giving them hope. Speaking of hope, do you have any for me? I've been in here so long. When do I just give up and resign myself that I'm never getting out?
I don't believe in giving up, and neither should you. I meant it. Maybe because I was her post-conviction lawyer and investigating seemingly impossible cases for a living. It wasn't uncommon to have breakthroughs, breaks that seemed so obvious it made me wonder whether the entire investigation was broken. I asked her to read from her journals, the ones she said she'd shared with her lawyers, but if she had, this was the first I'd learned of the contents. She wore makeup, which she later told me was permanent eyeliner, a ball cap, and had her still blonde hair pulled back into a ponytail. She teared up a bit, and I could tell getting personal, vulnerable, made her uncomfortable. At first, she apologized.
I didn't think anyone would believe me. It can happen so quickly. 1 minute you have this beautiful life. The next you're in a cell, sleeping on hard concrete, trying to understand how you're in here and he's out there free. It's insane. I've relived that moment over and over. The details only magnify through the years. Larry gave me instructions, told me what to do, when to do it, and what would happen if I didn't do it. Keep my mouth shut. Act normal. Or I would lose Noah. I was in a waking nightmare, moving as if underwater. You know that slow, dull feeling where your whole body shuts down, but you're still conscious? Everyone asks me why I didn't say anything at the time, why I didn't do anything to help myself until months later, point the finger at Larry. The truth is, I was completely freaked out, like I was having an out-of-body experience. There's Larry, sweaty, panicky, disheveled, coming through my laundry room door, his hands covered in blood, having just done the unthinkable. And he convinced me no one would believe it was an accident. I'd been home with Noah, sick in bed, vaporizer going, and I heard a banging noise. I assumed it was the dryer going off center again because I'd overloaded it with too many wet clothes. When I went to investigate, there was Larry. I wasn't expecting him. He never just showed up. I'd told him I was sick. On top of the dryer was a gun. Then we both started yelling at once, talking over each other until he grabbed my arm so tight he was hurting me, and he told me to shut up. I was hysterical, struggling with him to let me go. He dragged me with him into the master bathroom where he washed his hands, and I watched the blood drain down the sink. His voice was shaking. We were both crying. He's repeating over and over, "It was an accident. You told me Jay wasn't coming home." Like it was my fault, suddenly, that he had to take care of Jay. I couldn't even breathe. Snot coming out of my nose, crying. I couldn't believe it. He just kept saying, "I need a minute. I have to think." Meanwhile, I'm telling him, we need to call the police, an ambulance. I need to check on Jay. Then he tells me, his voice shaking, he's crying and talking at the same time, and said he'd come by to check on me and Noah. And when he pulled into the garage, he entered the laundry room and was putting his stuff down when he heard the garage door reverse. Larry said Jay came through the door, and they struggled, and Jay was shot. He figured Jay thought he was a burglar trying to break in. I mean, they didn't know each other. After that, everything went crazy between us. I was yelling, we needed to call an ambulance, get Jay to the Mayo emergency room, which was less than a mile away, and Larry held me back, saying, "It's too late, it's too late." He repeated it was an accident, but that no one would believe him. And the whole time, he's gripping my wrist, reminding me of Noah, leading me to the laundry room. Standing there in that eerie white glow, I saw blood spatter and a large, bloody handprint on the door leading into the garage. I saw Jay's briefcase on the floor, its contents strewn everywhere. I was slipping on the blood. Larry was grabbing at me, and finally he put me in the shower, told me to take off my clothes. I just stood there, hot water pelting my head, blood running off my arm, shocked, shaking, as Larry came back with trash bags and stuffed my clothes inside.
Larry did dump trash bags in his daughter Jody's bins, though Jody thought this was strange and wondered why he didn't use his own bins. She never searched the contents, but she noticed a marked change in her father. After the SWAT raid, he seemed unstable, weepy, emotional, frightened.
Larry made me shampoo the carpet. He kept giving me instructions and saying, "I have to think. No one will believe it was an accident." He was tense, curt, telling me not to call anyone. Jay was gone. They'd put us both in prison, and I'd never see Noah again. Don't call anyone. Don't do anything. No one will believe us. Suddenly it was us, not him, and eventually it was just me. He said he'd take care of everything. No one expected Jay for a few days. "That's all you know," he said. That was all I knew. Keep your mouth shut, say nothing, do nothing, act normal. And when I could finally get myself to look in the garage, there was no sign of Jay. The blood was gone, and the area smelled of gasoline. I remember just feeling adrift, aimless for several hours, as if in a trance, sick, numb, like I was going to throw up. And every time I looked at Noah, I just teared up. I was haunted by Larry's instructions. Act normal, shut up, do as I say, or I'd lose Noah. Use Jay's cell phone, finish up the projects I'd started, the one in the kitchen, the one in the garage. My world had just imploded, and all I could do was wander around and take instructions from the man who'd killed Jay. Tell them he's missing. That's all you need to know.
So you didn't save yourself because...
I loved him. But actually, I think I loved the idea of him. That much was obvious from the letters I wrote to him. Dearest Larry, a short while ago, I was out one evening taking my son to a movie, and as we exited the theater at Desert Ridge, the warm night air filled my lungs. The sounds of a band playing and children laughing seemed to spin around me. Noah and I were drawn toward the center of the plaza, where we saw children laughing and dancing in a large plateau fountain. I remember looking up for the longest time. The night sky was filled with the whitest, fluffy clouds. As I lowered my eyes, they were filled with tears. I became overwhelmed with feelings of loneliness and longing for someone to truly love and share such beautiful nights with. Before I knew what was happening, Noah was wrapping his arms around me, saying, "I love you, Mommy. I love you," as if he knew why my heart was broken. Something happened that night. Someone heard my prayers. There was a shooting star. I don't know. The next day you walked up to me and it was like a slow motion scene in a movie. As you were speaking to me, I remember nodding and responding. I don't remember hearing anything but the sounds of the music and children's laughter. As I looked into your eyes, my head spinning, I had to struggle to keep my composure. I could not get you out of my mind after that. And when I saw you next, I was walking uncontrollably toward you, like you had your own gravitational pull. You were larger than life, and I have been alone for so long. I created my own little isolated environment. Men often ask me out or attempt to pursue me. I don't seem to be able to even pretend to show interest in people that are average. I am drawn toward people and things that are special in some way. I would rather eat movie popcorn and M&Ms with my son than to allow someone insignificant to even look through the windows of the walls I put up. When you came into view, every step I watched you take seemed to thunder like a giant, crumbling every wall I have. Dear Larry, you are my soul and everything a man should be. Dear Larry, you have a heart so large and loving. Your eyes sparkle with mischief. You are funny, charming, gross, and disarming. You are the perfect man, sexy, dangerous, and hot. I am so grateful to have found you. I will love you so deeply and so completely for the rest of my life. Your M.
Because Marjorie remained silent, prosecutors didn't pursue Larry. In fact, following his free talk, they gave him immunity. And they didn't bother with further DNA testing on hair samples Detective Barnes had collected. They had their mark, convinced that petite, fit, Marjorie had not only murdered her husband, but froze him, then single-handedly chopped him up, gutted him, swaddled him in several layers of plastic sheeting, disposed of his other parts somewhere, and then dumped his heavy 300-pound-plus torso in the desert, a couple of miles from her own home and in plain view of any passing motorist. And, for added measure, left a bullet casing in the tub. None of it made any sense. Barnes likely had reservations too, because he made it his mission to find the rest of Jay's remains, something he thought would more definitively connect Marjorie to his murder. And while Marjorie languished 5 long years in jail for her trial to begin in 2009, Detective Barnes began cultivating snitches, cellmates willing to report information in exchange for benefits and leniency. Marjorie was a hot ticket. Sophia Johnson, a blonde Scottsdale housewife incarcerated for kidnapping her own children from their father who had sole custody, was all too eager to tell Detective Barnes what he wanted to hear.
It was her lawyer's idea to get her in the same pod with Marjorie. I told her she couldn't work as an agent on our behalf, but if Marjorie continued to confide in her...
At no time was I to solicit information from Marjorie unless she brought it up first.
She was to be a listening post. Don't ask Marjorie any questions about the case. Just let her talk.
We formed a friendship early on. I'd ask her how it happened, and she'd tell me. He was shot, frozen, thawed, and decapitated, his arms and legs cut off. She never gave any specifics, never said where Jay was frozen, just that his torso was found in the desert. I was scared, shocked actually. It was unbelievable, very traumatic. I told my lawyer and started taking notes of our conversations. When you picked me up and transported me down to the police station all those times, I'd tell you what Marjorie said, that she'd killed Jay in alphabetical order. It was a joke. She said the only thing the prosecution had on her was UPC codes that matched the containers the torso was found in. She was caught on tape buying the containers.
All of those details could also be found in Marjorie's discovery, stacks and stacks of which she had in her cell so she could help her defense team build her case. Turns out Sophia Johnson had been incentivized. Provided hotel housing at county expense, courtesy of Detective Barnes. The county paid her 2 months of rent, delivered food baskets and gifts, and free rides to the courthouse so she could share information with Detective Barnes. And meanwhile, Barnes appeared at her sentencing, asking the court for leniency due to her cooperation in Marjorie's case. Other cellies of Marjorie's came forward too, eager to share information. Lisa Sherman insisted she'd overheard Marjorie brag to her about her kitchen island, suggesting she'd buried Jay's missing parts underneath the structure. And Jake Orbin, too, suddenly recalled that the kitchen island had once been 2 pieces, but that following his brother's disappearance it had been fused together and relocated. Based on these revelations, Barnes sought another search warrant for Marjorie's house. And he solicited the help of a nonprofit company called NecroSearch, where volunteer scientists helped law enforcement find clandestine graves, using infrared and ground-penetrating radar imaging. Preliminary test results of Marjorie's kitchen island showed an anomaly. Excitedly and in anticipation of making a macabre discovery, jackhammering began, and Marjorie's beautiful kitchen looked like a bomb site. Once the structure itself loosened, the team began digging furiously with shovels, flinging dirt and soil everywhere, exposing the anomaly, water pooling from a leaky pipe. When Charity Hill, yet another jailhouse snitch, materialized, claiming to have heard the same statements from Marjorie as Sophia Johnson reported, it became increasingly clear that the state had little real evidence connecting Marjorie to the crime, especially after Charity Hill, who faced murder charges for assisting her boyfriend while he strangled a teenage boy with zip ties, recanted on the witness stand. though she'd signed a plea bargain to second-degree murder in exchange for her testimony.
I was housed with Marjorie.
The lady who chopped up her husband in pieces?
Yes.
Did Detective Barnes ask you exactly what you heard her say?
Yes.
And?
She never said anything like that.
So, whatever you told Detective Barnes regarding what Marjorie had said to you or other inmates about her chopping up her husband was false?
Yes.
Yet you were willing to go forward and do a plea agreement?
Yes.
Without ever bringing anything up to the judge about the fact that you lied?
Yes.
For what reason did you go and implicate Marjorie Orbin in a murder, if it's all a lie?
I was being charged with capital murder. I was looking at a possible life sentence.
And facing the death penalty.
Yes.
Disgusted with Hill's recantation, the prosecutor reminded Hill about the penalties of perjury. Words Hill's lawyer took as a veiled threat. Soon the trial was no longer about Marjorie or Jay or even Larry, but about Charity Hill and the prosecutor's misconduct. And as if that wasn't enough, Barnes himself came under scrutiny. During the time Detective Barnes was cultivating his snitches, he'd been involved in 2 other high-profile homicides, the baseline rapist and the serial shooter. Following arrests in both cases in 2005 and 2006, the homicide investigative team received commendations from the mayor. But Barnes' name had been glaringly omitted. This blatant exclusion enraged him, and it marked the beginning of his end in the Homicide Bureau. By the time Marjorie's trial began, Detective Barnes had been demoted to patrol, and he'd spent his days issuing traffic tickets and citations for disorderly conduct. The detective's fall from grace happened one Saturday in early October 2008, when he attempted to access the Violent Crimes Bureau of the Phoenix Police Department with his deactivated card. Undeterred, Barnes persuaded a sergeant to buzz him in remotely, and the next day, personal photos of the desk and work area of a female homicide detective and her husband appeared on a blogger's website titled Pictures of Her Cube. Unbeknownst to Barnes, a colleague, Detective Theron Quass, had been monitoring that very website. Soon, more photos appeared, this time displaying the nameplates of the married homicide couple, derogatorily dubbed Mr. and Mrs. Potato Head. In time, the photos were replaced by actual Potato Head dolls, propped alongside the homicide detective's nameplates and featuring degrading captions and demeaning, inappropriate sexual innuendos. In one photo, the detectives were outlined in white corpse tape and targeted with sharp instruments. Clearly affected by the personal assaults on their integrity, the detectives began to show visible signs of strain. Others in the unit were also impacted by the bizarre, disruptive situation. In fact, they'd all received an email a few weeks prior allegedly from this female colleague, which contained a rant against the police department accusing them of participating in everything from rape to child porn. And meanwhile, no one in the homicide unit believed that this detective generated it. But they informed Detective Quass that they were pretty sure they knew who had. In the middle of trial, in March 2009, Detective Quass raided Detective Barnes' home and launched an investigation into alleged criminal activity: identity theft, computer tampering, theft, and harassment. Barnes was removed from patrol and placed on administrative leave. Marjorie's case was fast becoming a mistrial: prosecutorial misconduct, police misconduct. Adding to that list soon would be the prosecutor's own hospitalization. With no second chair to press on, the trial stopped, jurors were sent home, and the victims were beside themselves. Hey, thanks so much for listening to Crime Stands Still. Be sure to tune in next week for another episode of Firefly, And don't forget to hit that subscribe button on your Android or Apple devices and check out my website, kerriedroban.com, where you can find and purchase all of my true crime books and follow the latest developments in my true crime cases. Until then, stay vigilant, stay true, and stay tuned.